Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be trying to get this vintage Hornby Triang train set going again. This is a set I found a few months ago at Larkspur Line Train Store, and from what I can tell, it's from the late 1950s or early 60s. I'm guessing a lot of this stuff has not been used in quite a long time, and it's also kind of unusual in the sense that it runs on 3-rail DC. Most trains run on 2-rail DC or 3-rail AC, so this is definitely a pretty uncommon kind of train set, and a lot of it is not in very good shape. There's a lot of damage to different things, so I really don't know what the chances of getting any of this stuff working again are, but we'll give it a solid chance, and hopefully by the end of this we'll at least have a couple runners. I think there's at least 2 powered locomotives in here, so maybe between the two we'll be able to get something going. And we've also got plenty of track and several different controllers, so yeah, it's going to be fun to see what exactly out of this can be revived. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the history of this collection other than that it belonged to the father of whoever donated this collection to the store. I did, however, find a name and phone number in the box to thank whoever it belonged to for the train, so we're going to call them up right now. I really don't know how this is all going to go because it has been a few months since I obtained this lot, but I at least want to thank them, and if we're lucky, maybe we'll be able to get some insight on what exactly the story behind all these trains were. Let's call them up now. Alright, I got the number all dialed up. Let's call them up and hope for the best here.
Hello,
Hi, may I speak to Ian?
speaking.
Hi, Ian. My name is Harrison. I was at Larkspur Line Train Store and I picked up a collection of old trains, and I guess they belong to your father?
Yeah, my father had them, going back to the, I don't know, 50s, 60s, when he was a kid, even earlier. I'm not sure what the date was. I remember I took them in here last year to the train store. And so did you buy them?
Yeah, they offered them up to me. I guess they were in various shapes and conditions, and I fixed them up. I actually run a YouTube channel where I repair model trains, so there'll probably be a video up soon of fixing them.
Oh, okay. That'd be great. Yeah, if you could send me the link, or when you're doing the YouTube video.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be sure to send you a text message once the video's online.
Can I give you my cell number so you can send me a text message?
Is this number good?
This number's good. This is our landline.
Oh, okay. I see.
Call and just say the video's up and that. So I'm sure my mom would be very appreciative to see that.
Do you mind if I include part of this call in the video?
Sure. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Appreciate it. And your name is?
My name is Harrison.
Harrison. Okay. All right.
Well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll try my best to see if I can get these things going again.
Okay. Perfect.
So now that we know some of the history of these trains, I think we'll go through here and kind of take inventory of everything. So starting off, we've got a whole bunch of different pieces of straight track. This one right here looks like maybe it activates something. Got a fair amount of curves. I think this set right here is where you connect the power terminals. We got a few kind of spacer type pieces, sort of spacer curves. And I think that this might actually be part of one of these engines here. I think this is a standard Hornby Triang DC locomotive. Well, it would be DC if it wasn't a dummy unit. Either way, it's missing its front wheels, so hopefully those are somewhere in here and we can get that working to the best of its abilities. Got a vintage tin plate car. Another tin plate car. This one's got its roof. So got some miscellaneous controllers. This one looks like it dates back quite a bit, and the two settings are off and high, so that's got to be intense. Whenever I see a cord removed like this, I can never tell if somebody just did so because they needed it for something, or if there was some sort of safety issue and somebody wanted to prevent others from using this. I don't know if I'm going to plug this one in. There's definitely some stuff rattling around inside it as well. And then this appears to be a relatively more modern controller. I suspect it's probably from the 70s, maybe 60s, I don't know. It's actually made in Canada. That's sort of impressive. All it has is an on and off switch though, so I'm guessing that this is either to power up this or it's just for lighting. I mean, the output on this controller is pretty low. I don't know if it would be strong enough to power these engines or not. I've got a variety of different switches. You've really got to love the simple mechanics of this stuff. Like, it just works. And then here's the controller. Now, I don't think that this actually contains a transformer because it says right here, connect to a transformer or a 12-volt battery. So I guess maybe you could connect this thing up to a lantern battery, or I guess you could even connect this thing up to a boat or car battery since it's 12-volt, but you'd have to be very careful not to have any short circuits or else the results would probably be pretty catastrophic. I think that this is also the original controller for this, made in England. It might even have a circuit breaker, judging by that, which would be a very good feature for something like this. We've got a really small boxcar of some kind. Looks like it's for shipping like smoked salmon or something like that. I think this is an old brake van, although it's also missing the roof. Got this vintage Triangle Railways caboose. Looks to be in pretty good shape. It could use a bit of a cleaning. Can't tell what this is. Maybe a cattle car. Got a nice old Triangle box car. Got this NYC car. Let's look at the kinds of couplers they were putting on that. Don't know what the heck this thing's for. Oh, got some sort of power terminals and a whole bunch of wire. I don't know if that's going to be any good. I've got this really nice looking British locomotive, Sir Nigel Greasley, and I think this is an A4. It's got all its wheels intact. I think that worm gear could probably use a bit of fresh oil. Since it's missing the drivers, I'm pretty doubtful this thing is actually going to work, but we might try powering it up and just see if it will do anything. I'm not so sure what kind of locomotive this is, but of the bunch, it does appear to be in the best condition. Hopefully the looks don't deceive me here. It's actually got metal construction too, which is really nice. Got a few more wires, and despite having one A4, we seem to have two tenders for one, which is sort of interesting. And some trucks. Just got a bunch of spare parts and stuff. So now what we're going to do is try testing both of these locomotives. I obviously can't put them on my layout because the track is totally different. We'll see if we can get them to power up. I'm going to put 10 volts, which should be enough to at least test out the motor. Doesn't seem to be liking that much. Yeah, it does not seem to be having it, so that one's going to need some work. As for this, obviously it's not going to run, but we might still have a good motor if we're lucky. There's no current draw. Okay, so we're not so lucky with either of those. Let's see if we can MacGyver something together between the two of them. The main reason I want to get one of these things working is I don't want to go set up an entire layout just to discover the two engines are not fixable. I think this one probably will be, but yeah, you really just don't know what you're dealing with. It also looks like somebody might have already worked on this before. Well, I can already tell what our problem is. Can you see it? Right over here we've got a brush, but there's nothing on this side, so I don't know what happened there. If there was something behind this, which is supposed to be backing it, but we're definitely missing some kind of part right there. Maybe Sir Nigel can donate a part temporarily. See, this screw is loose just like it was on the other one, so somebody has definitely been tinkering. Oh boy, we're dealing with the exact same problem on two different locomotives. That is not good. One thought did cross my mind, which is that a couple years ago I got a locomotive which I couldn't figure out for the life of me, and I'm kind of wondering if it's one of these. I really hope that has parts for this. There is always the possibility the one from the other side will work, but before we go doing that, let me see if I have parts for either of these locomotives. A couple of years ago I bought a lot for $5. It had this thing. From what I can tell, this might be the same kind of locomotive. Now I do see some springs and brushes in here, which is really what we need. Put on my safety glasses, because my experience with soldering stuff, which is spring-loaded, it's a little bit negative. Whatever it is you're soldering comes undone, and then it fires warm lead in your face, and it's just not a good time. Let's see if we can open this up without getting parts everywhere. Somebody's definitely already been working on this before. Okay, that was a lot more complicated than it needed to be, but we've got what we want. That should be good enough to at least test this. Okay, let's hope we've got good windings. Oh. Well, it's super low on power, but it is turning over. If we give this thing some oil, find the correct size spring, it will just bounce back to life. That is the dream here. So we'll also test out the second locomotive, see if we can get that motor to turn over. Same thing, the spring is too small. Okay, well, it's now a long while later, and I think I've come up with a solution which is going to work to get these locomotives both running once again. First of all, instead of using these older, smaller springs, we've got these much beefier springs, and these are off older Athearn locomotives. When you involve Athearn parts with a project, good things are just going to happen. That's just kind of a guarantee. And then the other thing is that I've managed to find these bolts, these machine screws here, and what I found is that they're just the right size to thread into here, so we just need to simply place the spring, and then this almost acts as a ramrod. And the perfect thing about it is that since you can turn it in, you can add the perfect amount of tension to the spring. So we're going to do this on both locomotives, and hopefully they'll work well. Obviously there's still a lot with the drive that needs to get fixed other than that, but at least this is a solid step in the right direction. And this metal being brass inside here is just perfect. Even though it's not threaded, it works pretty good. So we'll just get this in here a little bit, and we'll see if it will run like that. And there's not quite enough tension yet, so we'll just keep adding a little more. Yeah, and I just saw the brush make contact there, so I think this is going to work now. Yeah, look at that! So we've got a lot of arcing, so I think the tension is still a little bit light, so we'll put a couple more turns in on that. We'll see if it will run even better. It's still arcing pretty bad, but this brush is also not seated for this commutator, so that might be the problem. In the meantime, I think I'm going to remove some of these rods right here, because you can see we're missing a bolt there. And as I mentioned earlier, the ones on this side are gone, so I don't think the likelihood of fixing this is all that great. I did think about taking the rods off this and putting them on this engine, but I don't think that they're of the same generation, unfortunately. Yeah, I can see why these bounced out so easily if that's all it took. So this locomotive should still work. The traction's going to be total crap because it's only going to be two-wheel drive, but I mean the goal at this point is just to revive these locomotives. It's not supposed to be like a complete restoration. We'll save these parts for a future project. And now we'll service the commutator because that looks like it hasn't had any attention in a little bit of time. And now as our friends from across the pond say, we just got to mind the gap. It should be pretty good. I think the only two other things I want to do on this locomotive are add some lubricants to the wheels, clean the wheels, and also try to get all that crud out of there. Usually I would not recommend brake clean for something like this, but it's all metal parts, so. That, in my opinion, is already looking a lot more trustworthy, but now I'm just going to go through and comb each of the teeth just to make sure that there's nothing stuck in them, because that can also cause all kinds of performance issues. And now we'll just go through and add oil to everything. The general rule is if there are moving parts, add oil to them, except the commutator. It's already starting to roll a little bit better. I find with metal parts, especially older metal parts, it's always a good idea to add some nice thick grease. Sort of like, you know, an old car engine, how you sometimes add a heavier weight of oil to build oil pressure. Kind of do the same thing even with a little model like this. We'll just let that work its way through the drive. Well, that is sounding pretty good right there, so I think we'll focus on cleaning up the wheels now. Just gonna manually clean these two wheels up, and then I think this drive should be good to go. I really like this design. It's so simple. This just kind of slots into the shell. All you have to do is throw a bolt on there. Okay, well, it looks like this fast and furious machine is ready to go, but I think we'll try to get this one working as well before then, and then we'll try to build some kind of a layout with the two of them. I don't know. Earlier when I was testing this, you can see I will make contact with the spring, but this particular one is a little bit too narrow, so I'm going to throw in another one of those self-tapping bolts. I also noticed, by the way, that this metal shielding does slide around, so you have to make sure it's at the right height. Okay, that's a little bit weird. So I think something must be shorted within the body because this bolt right here is making contact with the body, which, you know, on some locomotives would be a problem. In this case, this is grounded, so it doesn't really matter if that's making contact right there. However, something's gone wrong with this electrical system that definitely could be causing trouble. I think this is contacting that bolt, so we're gonna lift that up. Let's see if that fixes it. I think maybe we still don't have enough tension on that one bolt there. Oh yeah. Okay, so now we've got good contact, but this has still got some tension. Ah. Wow, there's a lot of problems with this locomotive. You see how bent that rod is? Well, that looks right screwed up too. Look at that. Yeah, I think some damage has occurred here. Things are definitely moving in ways they're not supposed to. There's no doubt about that. But let's see if that has at least got it turning a little better. Wow, the struggle is real. Still not having it. Well, it would appear to me that everything is turning correctly now. I don't think it's binding up, so I'm just going to try adding some oil. You know, if this thing has been sitting for a long time, it's not inconceivable that everything might just be a little bit stiff. Just add oil to all of these moving parts right here. Most steam engines, too, you can't manually turn over the drive with the motor connected, but yeah, it's already starting to free up. Oh yeah, let's try that again. Okay, that's a good start. Still seems quite low on power. I think that has to do with the tension still being a little bit light. Yeah, a lot less arcing, a little more speed. Let's clean up that commutator now. Definitely seems a lot happier. Well, I think that's pretty good for now. I do want to try to figure out why this is all loose. It feels like that's still threaded into something. Let's see if we can torque it down. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, it's just loose. That's great. I was really worried there was no nut down there anymore, but I guess that's all good. And I also just threw a nice thick grease as I did with the other model just to try to protect the metal here. Now all I've got to do is clean up these wheels and, you know, these contacts right here, and then this engine should be ready to go as well. Okay, with all those wheels all tidied up, I think we can throw the shell back on this thing, and then we can actually start to go build a layout and test these locomotives, maybe even with some rolling stock if we're lucky here. Okay, well, I'd say that is looking pretty good. Now let's go build a layout with all this miscellaneous track. The track itself will probably require a little bit of restoration in the sense that when it's been sitting for a while it will oxidize, so we're gonna have to definitely clean up the heads of the rail a little bit here. I see a lot of people using rubbing alcohol that will remove old oils and carbon deposits, but it will actually make the oxidation worse. Alright, with our track all set up, I think we'll focus in on the controller. Now, as I said earlier, this thing apparently is supposed to be powered by a power supply or a 12-volt battery, but since it's DC, we can operate it off another controller. I'm just throwing this thing in for nostalgia's sake here. So we'll see if it still works. And it's recommended to give it 12 volts, but I'm going to give it 15 just to give it a little more oomph. And the good thing about this setup is that if anything is shorted out, we should be able to see it on here. So let's get one of our locomotives and a couple cars set up, and we'll try to actually run this thing. Okay, here, moment of truth. And we've got current draw. I think we've got a short circuit somewhere in the line. Yeah, something is shorted. This track right here is just brutal. I think that piece is okay. So far all of this is okay, but watch this. So something is wrong with one of these two pieces of track. Yep, that's the bad piece. There's another problem somewhere on this section of the line as well. I'm trying to take a guess, it's probably this part. Okay, now that I think we've got all the electrical faults out of the track, we're going to try running this locomotive again. I really don't know how this is going to go, but I figure it's 2 times the charm, so we should have slightly better chances. Well, Okay, that was my bad. It is running. Let's see if we can maybe improve this locomotive by adding a little bit of weight. Oh yeah. Well, that's Mondo improved. Well, other than the front wheels, this thing is running pretty darn well. Okay, well I did some work off camera. First of all, I extended the straight sections just so that the run up to the switch is a little bit longer, which I think will help out the wheels. And then for the wheels themselves, you can see right here, I removed this post right here, which I figured was probably redundant just so that they can flex a little bit more. I've just never seen that post from other manufacturers, so I figured that this should do a good enough job for it to operate. So let's set it up, and we'll try it out with a tender this time. Well, that seems pretty darn good if you ask me. Let's try putting some cargo behind it. Well, I've got to say I'm quite impressed. Everything seems to be working pretty well. I wasn't even sure if we were going to be able to get this locomotive going again, and yet here it is out on its original track, hauling cargo for probably the first time in maybe 40 or 50 years. It's very impressive. This whole tin-plated stuff was clearly quite well made. Anyways, now that we've got this train going again, why don't we try to get the other one running here? So we'll just start by testing out the locomotive before we try to haul either of those pieces of cargo, because the motor didn't seem super strong, so I want to try to give it an opportunity to maybe break in, and if we're lucky, you'll be able to pull off some laps. Alright, what does everybody think? Give it as much voltage as possible, see if we can get it to start. Well, it is moving. It's pretty weak, but it's not pulling too many amps, which is good. Come on, little buddy. I think it's getting there. Just needs a little more prodding. Well, I think that's about as fast as it's going to run, honestly. For the amount of voltage it's being given, I would have expected it to go a little bit quicker, but I'm not too concerned because the current draw is still pretty low, so just as long as that remains low, the motor shouldn't be generating too much heat, and I don't think we're going to have any burnout issues. It also has a little bit more strain because all the drivers and stuff are intact, so let's try to put some cargo behind it, see if we can get it to haul something around here. Yeah, it's actually starting to run really well. I know brake fans aren't supposed to go behind passenger cars, but I'm going to throw it on here anyhow. Okay. Well, that really didn't require much in the way of negotiation. Those cars just seem to work right away. That's awesome. So now that we've got these two trains working, you might think that this is the end of the video, but you'd be mistaken because off camera I decided to go ahead and get this thing working. This turned out to be a much bigger project than I was expecting. It turned out that the motor was completely bad. All I thought I had to do was just reassemble it and fix a few odds and ends here and there, but yeah, the armature was completely cooked out of it, so I had to rewind that. I added a few extra turns. I made it 125 turns a pole, so it should have a little more torque than it did before, and I also just had to add on a lot of things like a proper connection for the drawbar, an actual contact wiper, all sorts of different stuff to get this thing working, and I also threw that spare wheel set on the front here. So anyways, I just thought this would be a unique way to finish off the video. Let's throw it on the track and I'll show you how it runs here. And you can see, even after that higher torque rewind, this thing is still mighty speedy. It does lose contact a little bit in this corner, but I'll call that a runner any day. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you want to see happen with this layout. I know a lot of the Markland guys out there want to see me work on some AC stuff, and I think since the track is kind of built the same way, we could probably set up a switch to run this both on DC and AC power. And yeah, maybe just have a setup for running these different style of locomotives, maybe even a bit of Trix Twin Railway stuff. I don't really know, but either way, I hope you all enjoyed. Huge thanks to Ian for donating this set to the store. And with that, I just want to thank you all so much for watching.